My 25F BF 25 meters of 3 years lies about so many things and I'd what to do. I hope you guys can help me. 25F and my BF 25 meters have been together for 3 years, but I've known and liked, even loved him since we were both 17. For the most part our relationship is good, and we've been living together for just over a year now. The thing is, like most people, he has a tendency to lie. But I'm a really honest person and it rarely even occurs to me that I could lie. Honesty is very important to me. Over the years, some of the things he's lied about are how many people he's slept with, lying about being FWB in the past with a female friend when they were actually just friends. So far, innocuous, but annoying. But he also lied about trying to steal a bottle of vodka from my dad's best friend when we were at a party at his house. Someone caught him out. My dad didn't tell me till a few months later. I specifically said to my BF, if you lie about this, it'll be worse for you. Predictably, he tried to deny it. We stayed together, and I made him apologize to both my dad and my dad's friend. My dad has never liked him. Another thing is my BF's family are always saying that I'm good for him. That's annoying. About a month before Christmas, I found out that my BF is £2,000 in debt. And he had been for our entire relationship. He has a stable job, but he has never made any move to pay it off, and had been borrowing money to pay the bills. Keep in mind, he didn't tell me. I found out. And when I did find out, he said he wasn't lying, and that it was none of my business. As we live together and he didn't tell me, Dad was lying. I have since drawn him up a budget plan which he has to stick to me. It's like being his mum. So we're trying to work it out, but I'd if I feel the same anymore. The last thing is he spent Christmas Day evening at his mum's, and told me he wasn't that drunk. His mum told me he was so drunk he fell down the stairs and threw up in the sink. He clearly hasn't learned anything. He is meant to be starting therapy for this, but it seems a core part of his personality. I do love him and breaking up with him would be heartbreaking, but I don't know what to do. BC, I can't trust him and I don't want to live with my life wondering if someone is lying. I guess love isn't enough. Any advice appreciated. TL, doctor, my BF keeps lying. Edit, I forgot to say, we've had many conversations and more than one this is your last chance. Clearly I'm bad at last chances. I've also asked him if there's anything else he needs to tell me, and so far he's said no. Regarding the debt thing, we have talked about it, and I also went to stay with my parents for a few days. Your boyfriend lies to make himself look good, and to avoid taking responsibility for his actions. Even if he starts therapy for this, it'll take years before he gets better. The only question you need to ask yourself is, do I want to spend the rest of my life wondering whether this person is lying to me or hiding something from me? Love is never enough in a relationship. What you truly need is trust. We've had many conversations and more than one this is your last chance. See, the problem is that those weren't ultimatums, those were times when you were begging and pleading with him to have the tiniest bit of respect for you by not lying. You weren't actually planning on leaving, and he knew that. I've also asked him if there's anything else he needs to tell me, and so far he's said no. And this could very well be true. He most likely has other things to hide, but he's not willing to tell you them. You need to know them, but in his view he doesn't need to tell you, because he knows they're likely to be the last straw for you, or he wants to trickle truth you, i.e. telling you bits and pieces, not everything at once. You can't trust him. Breaking up might be heartbreaking, but staying will hurt worse in the long term. You begin from the beginning with the inaccurate premise. Like most people, he has a tendency to lie. I believe you're basing your generous tolerance of this behavior based on this erroneous premise. Most people are not inherently liars. It undermines trust and is destructive to relationships. Another issue that you're kind of missing is that he appears to have a drinking problem. Several of the lies you mentioned revolved around alcohol. Therapy is good and I think a productive step, but don't feel like you are obligated at such a young age to go through a life of supporting him in therapy and relapses and untrustworthy, shady behavior. There's nothing wrong with finding this a profound incompatibility and moving on with your life. Without trust, you have nothing, and he is given no reason for you to trust him for your entire relationship. Wait, he tried to steal from your dad? Did I read that correctly? You're right. Love is not enough and never will be. The purpose of dating is to get to know a person for who they are and decide if they are someone you want to be with long term. It's an opportunity to see and assess their personality traits, goals, flaws, etc. with the understanding that you cannot change them. You're seeing all these traits you don't want in a partner, and yet you're trying to rationalize how to make this work. Tons of red flags. Just know you're too young to waste time with a person who will frustrate you into an early grave. Would start working on an exit plan. Your dad doesn't like him. His own family holds you responsible for fixing him. He's shown no real remorse for any of his shitty behavior. You yourself suspect that it's too deeply ingrained in his personality to ever truly stop for good. You already know what your choices are. You either stay with him and resign yourself to a life with someone you can't trust, because it's worth it to avoid the pain of a breakup, or you bail and let yourself grieve. Those are your options. There isn't a secret third one that you're missing. So far you've been choosing the first one. Are you happy with it? Tokenism in my workplace is making me, 21F, uncomfortable. Hi all, I'm a grant writer and copy editor at a contemporary art gallery. Recently our governor allocated some funds to the arts and I'm working on a grant to get us some of that money. This grant is looking for a diverse workplace and we are 100% not that. The gallery director suggested I write about myself. I laughed because I thought she was kidding, but she wasn't. I don't think she knows how not great it looks when the lowest paid employee is the only book on staff. Suffice to say I don't think we'll be awarded the grant. The gallery director, manager, and all board members are white. Not much we can do, and it's reflective of the community. We're in northern Colorado. The emphasis that's being placed on my race right now is making me very uncomfortable. I don't know how to approach a conversation with the director about how the way they're treating me, and a few exhibiting artists, is tokenistic as fuck. The most recent example, the director changed the wording in one of my grants before it got submitted, making it sound like us exhibiting artists of color was a bold, courageous decision. It was pretty embarrassing to have my name on that thing because I don't think exhibiting artists of color is a bold political statement. They are people and it is a fucking art exhibition. Another thing that rubbed me the wrong way was how the curators imposed themes of alienation and cultural assimilation on a visiting Hispanic artist's very minimalistic paintings. I'm talking Clifford still minimal. How do I even begin a conversation like this? Any advice is appreciated. Too long didn't read. I feel like exhibiting artists of color and myself are tokenized and I want it to stop. Edit. Thanks so much for the thoughtful responses. It's comforting to know this othering isn't uncommon in the sphere of non-profits and the arts. Right now I'm working on getting a list of specific examples, not to bring with me, just to have in my head, so I can meet with the director outside of work. Good news is I think it's very unlikely I'll get fired because this woman my former professor and she's the one extended the job offer in the first place. I think this has the potential to be a step forward for the gallery. Thanks again guys. Edit 2. Anyone who shows up in my DMs telling me I look white based on my post history can kindly fuck off. The obsession with white passing is absurd and has led to an entire generation of mixed-raced and light-skinned puck feeling conflicted and guilty about their racial identity. I'm second-gen Mexican-American, I speak Spanish, and if this matters to you, it shouldn't. The rest of my family is dark. If you think I can't be fetishized for my race because I look white, you're ignorant as fuck. This is worth fighting over. I hate facilitating hypocrites, and giving into their asks is likely to wear your soul down eventually. But you should be aware that they will likely fire you. You'll have to decide whether it's worth it. I personally think it would be, but don't know what your circumstances are like. This is cringe. I'm so sorry you're experiencing this. It's not your responsibility to do this work at work. There are two ways you can think of it. 1. If this job is a stepping stone and you don't plan to be there long and or you anticipate your job won't be receptive, don't waste your energy. Get your paycheck and get out ASAP. 2. You want to, and feel it will be, at least potentially, worth your effort to say something. Talk to the most receptive staff member who is senior to you. Focus on very specific examples. Ask what is the gallery's commitment to anti-racism and request a facilitator be hired to talk through what that could look like. If there's a network for black professionals in your field, a mentor or group would probably be a good support and place to get ideas. This is great advice. Thank you for taking the time. My former professor got me this job and it's very important to me. It won't be fun but I do think it's worth the effort. I'm planning to meet with her outside of work hours. I'm a light-skinned Hispanic woman so I feel very uncomfortable being the resident culture sensitivity expert since there's no ubiquitous BIPOC experience. I would love to get a real expert in. Also work in non-profits and familiar with the delicate conversation of steering leadership away from tokenism. Although, I am not a person of color so I don't have to reconcile with an added layer of having these types of actions directed at me specifically, which makes the job a lot easier. A lot here depends on how receptive the people you work with are going to be to these types of conversations. Are you facing an earnestness mired by ignorance, or a desire to look good without doing the actual work? One will be a lot easier to dialogue with than the other. It could be worth approaching from a non-accusatory route of, I know this is an area you have shown interest in due to our applications for these types of grants and exhibitions, etc., and try to set up some day trainings, workshops. Try hiring a company to come in and do a culture audit. That will also take the pressure off of you to be the diversity expert in the office / prevent it being your job to teach other people these things. Thanks for bringing up that distinction. In the case of the director I think it's mostly ignorance. The manager and board are the ones doing most of the posturing. To make this stickier, the director is my former professor. I think I'm going to take her out for coffee outside of work hours. Hopefully she'll see where I'm coming from and I can get her to potentially set up day trainings for the staff and board. More than anything it's just super cringy and awkward. Thanks very much for your comment. Is this a unionized workplace? No, we're not unionized. We're a non-profit but we have paid staff. Person of color in non-profit here, and familiar with your concerns about tokenism as one of 2 books on a staff of 30. Familiar with setting day processes / procedures in place and a lot of related work. There's a lot to take into account here, including your energy / drive for effecting actual change at your organization. How much are these conversations actually worth it, especially when the white leaders at your organization might think they're being courageous just by declaring it, and how readily they'd be willing to commit to change once they're faced with your concerns. It's hard to give you specific advice without fully understanding the dynamics of the above and probably a lot more. The truth is this is a lot of work on the part of non-profits, and is even becoming its own mini-industry. It's maybe above our / relationships pay grade. I'd be happy to continue this conversation over DM if you want. My 25F husband's 27M toxic relationship with food has completely influenced me to the point where Christmas dinner ended in tears tonight. I don't think anyone's 2020 Christmas was ideal this year. I personally woke up this morning feeling a little bummed since obviously celebrations were not in order. I can't say I really care about Christmas traditions nowadays, but the only thing I really crave is the food. It's all about the love and togetherness it represents. This all worked out, though, since I'm trying to do a strict 1,200 calories a day anyway. My husband is doing similar calorie counting. A little context, my husband used to be 220 plus pounds and ate unhealthily. He was 178. Goal weight is 165 when I met him 3 years ago, but his weight has fluctuated between 178 to 188 since being with me. Means he hasn't been able to meet his goal weight, and it is a huge source of anxiety and depression for him. I myself want to lose 10 pounds and have been calorie counting and working out in solidarity but I also have not been able to lose weight. Yes, I know we're doing something majorly wrong if the scale isn't moving. I hear it all the time from my husband. But then surprise, I had 2 sets of loved ones, my parents and friends of ours, bring homemade meals cooked with love to our doorstep. Considering I was literally sad in the morning about lacking this very thing today, it was a dream come true, the Christmas feast I wanted. I'm talking lamb, prime rib, bunch of sides, dessert, food galore. If this isn't love, I don't know what is. It was a no-brainer for me. No way was I weighing my food out and calorie counting tonight. So I made myself a plate and I noticed my husband's mood dropped. I made him a similar plate to mine, but he reduced it by more than half. Tried to take a selfie with our food to send thanks to our friends, and it was the most forced smile from him. I ended up packing away 2/3 of my plate into Tupperware because he was just going on about how greasy and high calorie all the food was and that it was making him feel sick. We had been laughing and hanging out prior to the food landing on our doorstep, and suddenly he's basically sulking. How could I possibly enjoy my food? I get if he wants to stay on track with his calories, but I just wanted to celebrate the food that fell into my lap because my loved ones thought of us today. I told him this. He tells me I always find reasons to cheat on my calories, and that Christmas isn't an excuse to eat a 1,000 calorie plate. Side note, yes it is. That there's no point counting calories during the week only to eat away my deficit over the weekend. He brings up how we could have just waited until tomorrow to eat that meal instead. He says how he thought the plate I made for myself was enough for both of us. My plate was 3 small pieces of lamb, salad, some roasted Brussels sprouts, peas, and half a potato. He ends up completely shutting down and shuts me out, saying he's tired of fighting about food. He's miserable about the burden of finishing the food in the fridge. He's kicking himself for the dinner roll he shouldn't have eaten, the bites of Christmas cookies he took earlier, etc. etc. I know a lot of this is projection, but it still hurts. If we fight, it's a 90% chance it's related to weight loss / diet / exercise / food. The holidays it becomes so unbearable because of the barrage of food that naturally comes with it. I've noticed changes in myself since being with him. I can't even have the weighing scale out because I'll check my weight and cry if it hasn't lowered, and as I said, my weight has not changed in the year that I've been actively trying. For those wondering what I look like, I wear a size S and pant size 6. Been a bit chubby all my life, but still I was never like this. It's because he'll check his weight and if it's bad his whole day can be ruined. And when that happens it ruins my day too. So I've been influenced, obviously. I find myself texting him at work the calories I've eaten so far in the day. I have this obsession with food now that makes me feel like I have an eating disorder some days. This isn't often, but I'll make myself puke because I'll literally feel nauseous from the guilt of overeating. He knows all of this as we are very open and communicative, but when he gets the way he does it's like he can't get out of it. I married him for a reason and I endlessly love him, but everyone has different anxieties and shortcomings. Clearly, I really hate this one. I ask him if it'll be like this forever. He says he just wants to lose those last 10 pounds or so and then we can chill out. All in all, trying to eat healthier and in moderation isn't a bad thing, so I often feel like I'm in the wrong when we argue. Technically he's right. I didn't have to eat that plate tonight since it would make me go over in calories. Too long didn't read. I am trying to support my husband's weight loss with my own weight loss, in particular calorie counting. My husband's toxic relationship with food is taking a hit on my mental health. Food has only ever been wholly positive. It's my #1 love language to this day. Now I find myself crying because I can't even eat Christmas dinner without feeling bad. Questions: does anyone have experience with being close to someone who has a hard relationship with food? Even though we rehash what is essentially the same fight time and time again, his obsession / anxiety / whatever we should call it always wins over logic and reasoning. What do I do? I'm clearly not losing weight at the rate I should be. He's probably just as frustrated with me as I am him. I'm so tired of us crying over literal cookies and buns.